Before we start this video, I wanted to share with you where I got the idea for it. First, it was a post by David Chan on LinkedIn, in which he shared results from a Sitecore survey in which CMOs stated that security, in 48% of the cases, was the most significant factor for making technology decisions. Second, a Wired report and video on YouTube about geolocation data that was collected under dubious circumstances and was publicly available. The data showed the movements of over 200 guests visiting Jeffrey Epstein's island with near pinpoint accuracy. Geolocation data is becoming increasingly important in marketing technology. This video discusses my thoughts on the topic and how we can improve its use for the benefit of trust with our users. Location tracking has become a cornerstone of modern marketing technology. It's how companies know where their customers are, what they're doing, and how to reach them with perfectly timed offers and ads. But it's not just about delivering convenience or improving user experiences. It's also a tool that sparks lawsuits, raises ethical questions, and reveals just how vulnerable our digital footprints can be. To understand the world of geolocation tracking, let's start by unpacking some of the biggest stories that have made the headlines. One of the most unsettling cases comes from a Wired investigation into data collected by Near Intelligence, a data broker now rebranded as Azera. Investigators Jove Marotra and Del Cameron uncovered precise location data on nearly 200 visitors to Jeffrey Epstein's island, showing exact routes from hotels, docks, and even homes. This wasn't classified data. It was out there, publicly accessible. For an industry built on trust and precision, this case shows what happens when data collection isn't paired with adequate safeguards. It's not just obscure data brokers making waves. Google has faced significant scrutiny for its location tracking practices. Regulators discovered that even when users opted out of location tracking by disabling location history, Google continued to collect data through other settings, like web and app activity. This misstep resulted in record fines, including $392 million in 2022. While Google has since updated its policies, this raises questions about transparency and whether users fully understand what they're agreeing to when they share their data. Telecom companies have also been caught in the crossfire. Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile were fined a collective $196 million by the FCC for selling customer location data without proper consent. This data, which passed to third parties like bounty hunters and law enforcement, highlighted just how easily location information can be exploited when oversight fails. One incident involved a Missouri sheriff allegedly using this data to track judges, showing that when data is mishandled, the consequences can ripple far beyond marketing. And listen, it's not just about the brokering of this data. Some of it can even be obtained by public sources. Remember Elon Jet? It was a Twitter account set up by the 20-year-old Jack Sweeney that announced the movements of Elon Musk's private jet. Now, although many companies, presumably Twitter, X, whatever, do this, it's ironic to hear the argument against Elon Jet when Elon stated that any account revealing people's real-time locations will be suspended, as it's a physical safety violation. So how does all this tracking happen? The gist of it, and again, this is very high level, is that it starts with something as simple as location pings, those signals your phone sends to GPS satellites, Wi-Fi networks, or cell towers. Each ping creates a timestamped log of your location, which is often shared with apps and websites. This data is then passed to ad exchanges, where marketers bid on it in real time to serve you targeted ads. But it doesn't stop there. Data brokers collect this information, repackage it, and sell it to other companies or sometimes governments who use it for purposes far removed from marketing. Although brokers often claim the data is anonymized, research has shown that patterns like daily commutes or frequent visits can easily reveal individual identities. Let's start with the personal impact of location tracking. Imagine someone having detailed access to your daily movements, where you work, what time you pick up your kids, or even which coffee shop you frequent. This isn't some far-fetched scenario. Cases of stalkers and malicious actors using location data to target individuals have been documented, and they highlight the dangers of having such sensitive information out in the open. Even my own daughter has been a victim of stalking. By unknowingly adjusting the settings through the Snapchat app, she opened up her location for abuse. It resulted in anonymous messages one evening from a stalker who knew where she had been and when she had gone home, To make a long story short, the stalking did not immediately end, police could not do anything, and we went through all our settings in all of our apps and changed passwords. You don't want to mess around. So it's safe to say that apps you trust can also play a surprising role. According to an Ernst & Young report, many apps collect second-by-second location data, even when they're not in use. While companies often claim this data is anonymous, behavioral patterns make it easy to connect the dots and identify who it belongs to. For marketers, this raises questions about whether the convenience of precise targeting outweighs the potential risks to individual privacy. The societal implications of location tracking are equally troubling. Every data breach or misuse story chips away at the public trust in technology. People start second-guessing the apps they download or the devices they use, creating a ripple effect that impacts innovation across industries, including Martech. My daughter vigorously checks this with each app she installs. Trust is a cornerstone of effective marketing. Without it, engagement and loyalty become even harder to maintain. But beyond trust, there's the issue of how this data can be weaponized. Governments and organizations have used location tracking to monitor marginalized groups or reinforce systemic biases. For instance, tracking visitors to sensitive locations like reproductive health clinics or targeting certain communities with increased surveillance aren't hypothetical concerns, they're documented practices. These uses turn a tool meant to enhance our user experience into one that deepens societal divides. At the core of these concerns is the dual nature of location data. In the hand of a responsible marketer, it can provide incredible value, helping companies deliver relevant offers or improve customer experiences. But when mishandled, it becomes a liability, exposing individuals to risk. Let's dive into the gray areas of location tracking, those scenarios where the line between useful and invasive starts to blur. Take personal use, for instance. Many parents, including myself, use trackers to monitor their children's movements, ensuring they arrive at school safely, or keeping tabs on their whereabouts in crowded spaces, or even their bicycles and backpacks, etc. It seems harmless, even responsible. But how secure is that data? If a tracker's information is stored on a poorly protected cloud server, who else could access it? Beyond safety, there's a broader question. Are we normalizing surveillance for the next generation? If kids grow up constantly monitored, will they accept invasive practices without question later in life? It's a dilemma that marketers must also consider. Are we conditioning users to trade privacy for convenience with every push or geo-targeted ad? Now, let's shift focus to corporate and government use. During the pandemic, many companies adopted location tracking technology to monitor workplace movements for safety. But what happens when that tracking extends beyond public health? Imagine your employer knowing how long you spend in the break room or detouring on your commute. It's a fine line between ensuring workplace safety and micromanaging employees' every move. For governments, the stakes are even higher. Tracking criminals or persons of interest might seem like an obvious application, but what about situations where innocent individuals are swept up in that data net? When tracking is done without consent or adequate oversight, it risks becoming a tool for overreach, not security. It reminds me of a Latin quote that I've always wanted to use. Quis custodiet ipsos custodes? Who guards the guardians? The mentioned examples remind us that just because something is possible doesn't mean it's ethical or even effective. This leads us to some fundamental questions that those of us in Martech need to wrestle with. Where do we draw the line between consented and non-consented tracking? Consent is often touted as the gold standard, but it's rarely as straightforward as it seems. If users feel pressured into agreeing, whether by their employer, an app, or even societal expectations, is that really consent? Safety is another common justification for tracking, but does the data generally make us safer? Or does it just provide a comforting illusion? For marketers, these are crucial points of reflection. Building trust with users requires honesty about what data is collected, why, and how it's used. Without this transparency, we risk alienating the very people we aim to connect with. As Martech professionals, we occupy a unique position in the conversation about location tracking. On the one hand, we rely on this technology to create personalized, effective marketing strategies that deliver value to customers and businesses alike. On the other hand, we're stewards of the data we collect. And with that comes a significant responsibility. It's not enough to say, we're just following the rules. The rules like GDPR and CCPA are there to set the baseline, but real trust is built when we go beyond compliance and start asking, is this the right thing to do? One of our core responsibilities is ensuring privacy by design in the tools and platforms we build or recommend. That means thinking about privacy from the outset, not as an afterthought. Are we collecting only data that's absolutely necessary? Are we making it clear to users what data we're gathering and why? And are we safeguarding that information with robust security measures? These aren't just technical questions, they're ethical ones. Transparency is key here. Customers need to know they're in control of their data and that it's being used in ways that align with their expectations. When that trust is broken, the entire relationship can collapse. So it's not just about the systems we design, it's about the advice we give. If a client wants to implement location tracking as part of their marketing strategy, it's our job to make sure they understand the risks as well as the benefits. That might be pushing back on practices that feel overly invasive or guiding them toward more ethical alternatives. For example, does a campaign really require real-time location data, or can the same goals be achieved with less intrusive methods? These are the kinds of questions we need to bring to the table. As I've pretty much stated in all of my videos and blog articles so far, collaboration is another critical piece of the puzzle. Privacy and ethical data use aren't just the responsibility of one department. Legal, IT, marketing, and compliance, and other teams, they all need to work together to ensure the system we create are not only effective, but also respectful of user privacy. This is especially important as regulations evolve and technology continues to advance. Staying informed and adaptable is the only way to ensure we remain on the right side of both the law and public opinion. So, just some closing thoughts. When we talk about location tracking, it's easy to focus on tech itself, how it works, who uses it, and the risks it creates. But at the end of the day, the most important question isn't what the technology can do, it's what we can do. Location tracking is powerful, and like any tool, its impact depends on the choices we make. This is where both personal and professional responsibility come into play. On a personal level, it's about being more intentional with our digital lives. It's so easy to download an app and click agree and move on. But every time we do, we're making a decision about our data. That decision often happens without fully understanding the consequences. Asking a few simple questions like, who's collecting this data and why, can go a long way. It's not about avoiding technology altogether. It's about making informed choices and pushing back when practices feel intrusive or unnecessary. And this matters not just for our own privacy, but for the larger message it sends to the companies collecting the data. For those of us in Martech, the stakes are even higher. I'm sorry, it is. We're not just users of this technology. We're part of the system that designs, implements, and relies on it. That gives us a responsibility to lead by example. Compliance with laws like GDPR, CCPA, PDPL, the list is never ending, but which is a good thing, is essential. It's not the end game. The real challenge is to build trust by being transparent, ethical, and proactive about privacy as a company and as a practitioner. It means creating systems that respect users' boundaries and advising clients to think critically about how and why they're collecting data. As consultants, we have the ability, come on, let's be honest, and frankly, the obligation to influence all of these decisions. And let's not forget that the public is paying closer attention to these issues than ever before. For us, this is a chance to demonstrate leadership and set the standard for how this technology should be used. The truth is, location tracking is not going away, and neither are the challenges it brings. But that doesn't mean the future is bleak. It means we have a choice to make. Do we continue using this technology in ways that erodes consumer trust? Or do we step up and help shape a future where it serves people rather than exploits them? The answer isn't simple, but the effort is definitely worth it because at its core, Martech isn't just about delivering results, it's about building meaningful connections, and trust is the foundation of those connections. If this conversation has sparked questions or ideas for you, I'd love to hear them, whether you're a Martech professional or a concerned consumer or someone with a unique perspective. Let's keep this dialogue going. Leave a comment, reach out directly, or share this video with someone who might find it valuable.